Hi, Mario Kuntz here, Director of Operations for Vanguard Exercise Management, and I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about something that we're all going through right now. It's an experience that I've never been through, and I don't imagine that any of us have been through in our lifetimes. We are in the midst of a global pandemic. However, if there's any takeaway from what we're going through right now, any lesson to be learned, it should be the importance, the significance of maintaining proper health, taking care of ourselves, staying fit, staying healthy, doing the things that we need to do in order to make sure that our bodies are functioning in an optimal manner. Now, where I'm from, the city of Chicago, the coronavirus has ravaged the African American community. Now, pre-pandemic, African Americans were already in bad shape from a health standpoint. So let me just throw out some numbers for you. Pre-pandemic, once again, a white individual typically lives on average about 8.8 years longer than an African American individual. Now, in the early stages of the pandemic, what were we told? We were told that individuals that had pre-existing conditions, things like heart disease, chronic lung disorders, asthma, diabetes, these were individuals that were more susceptible to acquiring the virus and having the most detrimental effects because of it. Let me just throw out some numbers. Now, this data, keep in mind, this data is about a week old, so the numbers have increased quite dramatically. However, the underlying point is still holds true. In Chicago, African Americans account for about 68% of the city's, at the time, 118 deaths resulting from the coronavirus. 52% of the roughly 5,000 confirmed cases were made up by African Americans, despite that population making up just 30% of the city. Okay, so once again, 52% of the cases made up by a demographic group that only makes up 30% of the population. Now, these numbers come directly from the Chicago Department of Public Health, so they're not just numbers that I'm just pulling out of thin air. Bottom line, that means that African Americans in the city of Chicago are dying at a rate that's about six times higher than that of white individuals. Now, why is that? There's several different factors. I always break down decisions like that in terms of environmental factors. There are external environmental factors, things that are beyond our direct control, and then there are internal factors. So let's take a look at those external factors. Why is it that we have this disparity? Well, there's several reasons. There's decades of inequality, institutional racism, inadequate health care, things like that. Now, we don't have direct control over that. Now, however, we do have control over some of those internal environmental factors. Let's throw out some more numbers. Diabetes. Diabetes rates among black Chicagoans is double that of white Chicagoans. Okay, it's a proven fact. Deaths related to lung disease are about 20% higher than for blacks as opposed to white individuals. Almost 2 in 5 African American adults have high blood pressure. That's a rate that's about 25% higher than whites. African Americans are about 20% more likely to die from heart disease than their white counterparts. Improper nutrition is a huge factor, whether it be from just overall poor food choices to inaccessibility of fresh fruit and produce and that sort of thing because of food deserts. Also, among non-Hispanic blacks aged 20 and older, about 63% of men and 77% of women are obese or overweight. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Among non-Hispanic blacks aged 20 and older, 63% of men and 77% of women were overweight or obese. Now, those numbers and that data should be very significant. Now, if you noticed, overweight and obesity, those were not factors that were initially listed in that initial report for pre-existing conditions. Okay? However, it has a dramatic effect on the impact that the disease has amongst African Americans. Now, why is that? there's several different factors that are directly associated with that. I want to focus on one primary source. What happens when an individual is obese? It's usually the result of overeating, eating the wrong types of foods, that sort of thing. What has been found is that overeating increases the body's immune response. Now, this increased immune response has a negative or detrimental effect. It causes the body to generate excessive inflammation, and inflammation is directly related to as being the cause for chronic diseases. Okay, you basically become ripe for the picking with something like a coronavirus. Now, I recently had the opportunity to read through a very intriguing report. It was conducted by New York University's Langone Health Center. Now, this was significant because, as we all know, if you've been paying attention to the news, New York City has been hit significantly by the coronavirus. The effects are still being felt in that city. Now, the title of the article that I read was New York University Scientist. Largest U.S. study of COVID-19 finds obesity as the single biggest chronic factor in New York City's hospitalizations. This study was conducted in an effort to allocate resources. So how do we staff for triage? How do we determine the amount of ventilators that we're going to need? How do we determine how many hospitals are going to be required and hospital beds that are going to be filled? So what these scientists did was they conducted what's known as a decision tree. And it kind of looks like this. If any of you have any experience with computer programming, I just had the basic introduction to it, but it reminded me of an if-then statement. So in basic programming, the way that a flowchart is set up like this, if this happens, then you do that. So it's very similar to that. So what they did was they conducted this study utilizing this decision tree. Maximum likelihood classification tree for hospitalization. I know you can't read it, the print is too small. But basically what it does, it starts with a sample. In this case, we've got 3,282 individuals. That was the starting sample. And it asked a question, is the individual in this sample over age 65? If the answer is yes, then it goes over here. And in that case, about 87% of individuals that contract the disease were hospitalized. If the answer is no, the person is under the age of 65, then the next question is asked, is the person obese? If the answer is yes, then in that case, 65% of those individuals were admitted to the hospital. Okay? So, right underneath the factor of age is obesity as being a determinant as to whether an individual winds up being hospitalized as a result of contracting the coronavirus. So I'm saying all this to say, now, again, this study was fairly significant. 4,103 individuals made up this entire study. Okay, it was the largest at this to date. So I'm saying all this to say that we really need to make some changes, particularly in the African American community. If we're practicing shelter in place, you probably have some additional time on your hands. Don't let that time be wasted. Don't let it be a time where you're just sitting on the couch and snacking and laying around, being a couch potato, allowing yourself to become sedentary, okay? Allowing yourself to be stressed out. Turn off the TV, because right now we're being bombarded by negative messages. Okay? You want to take a break from that. Okay? Use the time that you have to become reacquainted with yourself. And how can you do that? What better way to be reacquainted with yourself and to practice good habits than by getting a little physical activity in? Even if you've got a small space. Okay? It doesn't take a lot of room to conduct basic body weight exercises. Okay? Make conscious decisions when it comes to your nutrition. Okay? Now, a lot of the smaller stores and a lot of the restaurants and that sort of thing either closing earlier now. Maybe they don't have the option of delivering food. So a lot of us are finding that we have to cook more and rely on our own skill set when it comes to meal preparation. use that to your advantage. When you're going to that grocery store, make wise selections. More fresh fruits, more vegetables, more lean cuts of meat. Avoid the center aisles that are typically filled with the sugary foods, the high carbohydrates, the sodas, the sugary items, things like that. If you don't make the effort to improve your own health, nobody else will. And when it comes down to it, good overall health is really all that we have. I don't care how much money you have in the bank. If you're in poor health and hurting and loading up on a daily basis with different medications, that's not living in an optimal manner. And that money doesn't make a bit of difference to you. You can have all the personal possessions in the world. You can have the mansions, the vacation homes. You can have the nicest car, the best jewelry, the finest wardrobe. But if you're too sick to function properly, do any of those things matter at all? So what I'm saying is, take this opportunity to do what it takes to get yourself healthy. There's nothing better than feeling good. And when you're able to do that, it has such a significant impact on the way that you live your life. You're feeling better. You're happier. Your state of mind is clearer. We're also finding that because of compromised immune systems, obesity and just being unhealthy makes you more susceptible to a lot of viruses. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm in good health that I can't get the virus. I know that that's a falsehood. However, if I were to contract it, I'd be in a better position to fight it off. And I want that for everyone that's watching this. I want everyone to practice the habits that are going to make you healthier in the long run. So in the meantime, the Vanguard motto is train hard, eat clean, and stay focused. Okay? We're going to get through this together, and I want to see you come out on the other side happier, healthier, and ready to spread that message of good physical fitness. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you later. Be healthy.